All right. Well, hi everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for another Launch Minnesota Friday Forum. We have these on the fourth Friday of every month, always on a different topic. We've been doing these for several years now, and we've covered so many different things. Every once in a while, though, I like to assemble a little founders panel that'll just allow uh, people to share what they've learned and then people in our audience can ask questions in return. This morning, I'm very excited to have five amazing women on our panel from a broad range of industries and experiences. So I am going to let them introduce themselves. Susan, would you like to go first?
Sure, I'd love to. Thank you, Maddie. Hi, everyone. I'm Susan Langer, founder and CEO of Spave. Spave is a social giving app that allows you to use your spending to save and to give without changing your habits.
Cool. Thanks, Susan. Dory?
Hi, everybody. Dory Jones. I am co-founder and CEO of Acumen Medical. We are building a non-invasive cardiac monitor for ICU patients that are pediatric, so neonates, infants, and children.
Thanks, Dory. Mary Kay?
Hi, I'm Mary Kay Zinowitz, and I'm the founder and CEO of Bus Stop Mamas. We are a tech platform that introduces employers to moms who want to work, and we introduce moms directly to employers through our platform through email introductions. So our areas are jobs, needed now talent, and promotions and advertising.
Awesome. Thanks. Ashley?
Hi, everyone. I'm Ashley from Mommy's Solutions. We invent devices that enhance breast pump performance so women can comfortably collect more milk in less time at the pump.
And also the Minnesota Cup
Yes.
2024 winner. I know some of the people on the call are
Yeah.
currently in Minnesota Cup, so I'm sure.
True. Yes. I'm holding the torch for a little longer, but
Yeah.
excited to watch this season and pass it along.
Yeah. Okay, and Dr. Mosley.
Hi, my name is Dr. Mosley, or just Mosley, like Oprah or Prince or Beyonce.
Love it.
I am founder and CEO of The Playbook. We're an award-winning mental health sports tech platform. Our app tracks and monitors stress, well-being, and resilience. So we're able to provide athletes and their supporting organizations with actionable plans to prevent problems from becoming crises. I like to say the playbook gives organizations visibility into how their teams are doing beyond the game, and that regular tracking and engaging daily, we're able to recognize upticks in team and individual mental health and well-being, and also prepare for immediate action as soon as an athlete enters into the red zone, which means their scores have dipped into an unhealthy range. I also serve as a consulting psychologist for the Big Four Plus professional sport leagues and the NCAA, and I've been doing that for about a decade.
Amazing. Thank you. Okay, I have a handful of questions for our panelists, but this is a forum. So anyone who puts a question in the chat, we will be sure to prioritize those. So first of all, and feel free to take this, anyone, what inspired you specifically to take the leap into entrepreneurship?
I feel like you should call on people, Maddie. Otherwise, we're all
I,
going to
okay, let's
politely.
do that. Susan, how about you go first?
Sure, happy to. It's in my blood. It's in my ancestry. I have great grandparents that migrated to the United States from Sweden and Denmark and who were entrepreneurs in home building and in commercial fishing. My father was an entrepreneur, my brother's an entrepreneur, so it's in my blood. But as far as Spave goes, Spave is my second business. I had started a marketing company, Mosaic Marketing, in the 90s. And when I traveled to Africa, I saw a problem and I saw an opportunity, and I knew that it was aligned with everything that I had done personally and professionally. So I say it's my calling.
So, Mary Kay?
Um, well, I am the first entrepreneur in my family, and I think it's always been in my blood. Uh, Similar to Susan, I saw a problem. So prior to Bus Stop Mamas, I owned a consulting firm. I worked with law firms around the country doing branding, business development, and marketing for about 10 years. And that company was called Horse's Mouth Creative. And I stood at the bus stop for the first time when my daughter was 10 because my husband was the stay at home parent. And then I got to see all these incredible women who exited their careers to care for their children. And I saw that there was a problem. They had a problem getting through to jobs that were well beneath their skill set, and they really wanted to work. And I knew employers were missing out. So I knew I had to fix it. And I'm a fixer. So I decided I'm just going to do it. And, there's a little bit of, ignorance in starting a company. I didn't know what tomorrow held. I was just like, yeah, I can do this. I do things like this all the time. I built programs in the past for my clients using their budgets, of course. And I knew I could do it, but I really didn't know everything that went into it. So ignorance is bliss. And that's a good thing. Otherwise, maybe we wouldn't have so many entrepreneurs. But yeah, I love to fix things and just did it.
Yeah, doing a great job too. Ashley.
Yeah, so also no entrepreneurship in my family, and I always like to call myself an accidental entrepreneur. So for those of you that didn't have aspirations of being an entrepreneur, I can be your kind of avatar here in this call. The inspiration behind taking the leap into entrepreneurship myself was just personal experience with this major pain point and witnessing this massive unmet need for pump enhancing technology that is only getting more acute as modern mothers are getting busier and the technology is lagging far behind their needs. And I just couldn't live with it. I couldn't live with that being the reality. And I feel like it takes a mom to solve that problem for other mothers. And that inspired me to take the leap into entrepreneurship. And I will say, I've got a background as a PhD in biomedical sciences. And I feel like PhD to entrepreneurship is not super common. So I do always like to advocate for academics in terms of there have been a lot of transferable skills in thesis work and working towards graduation in a PhD program to kind of the ground up entrepreneurship game. So more transferable than you may think.
And Dr. Mosley?
Yeah, I totally agree. I love everything that everyone said. Like it's very much so many common themes. So much on my end, it's about a problem. And so in terms of thinking about like problems, so it's the what and the why, but the how changes over time. So I did not start my career in sport. I started as an academic, actually, Ashley. I was like a dean and professor for many years. I started at Dartmouth, and the solutions that we had for tech when we could recognize when a student was not performing well, we had those. If your grades were dipping, we had alert systems that we were able to see that. But when it comes to mental health, and at the same time, I had a private practice on the side. So like when people are like, "Oh, did you jump all the way in?" I did not. I had started with a full-time job, and then I had a private practice on the side where I specialized in high performers, elite athletes, referees, first responders. And the issue with mental health and the problem is that often we don't have quantifiable metrics around it. And then also it became really difficult for people to recognize warning signs of distress, particularly in elite performers and athletes, because people over-index on your physical performance. So we have tons of biometric data around athlete performance or performance in general, but we have nothing around mental health. And those blind spots, unfortunately, put us in situations where we have people across the lifespan that are dying by suicide, and we're in the middle of a mental health emergency. And so on my end, it was how do we create something that allows for us to recognize when people need support? And then how do we provide quantifiable metrics and then a game plan for what to do about that? It started kind of one-to-one, kind of private practice. That modality is great, but not for everybody. Then recognized that there was no way to really scale that in a meaningful way. So we started doing, I would say the Playbook 1.0 was like assessments, workshops, and webinars, individual and group, wellness and performance coaching. And then COVID happened and demand exploded. And so we needed to find a way to scale. And that's where the tech came in. And so allowing us to automate and also create scalable ways to give people resources when they needed them the most.
Thank you. And Dory?
Amazing. Well, you guys, I feel like are all textbook find a problem and then, build a company around finding the solution. We did things the wrong way. I'll be totally transparent. We started with our solution. So I am an engineer by background. I've spent 18 years working on medical devices on the cardiac and critical care side. And I had an opportunity to combine resources with two of my past colleagues where they had an idea of combining two existing technologies to make something new and make something better for monitoring heart function. And what we did do, I think the right way, is a customer discovery process to find where is the area of most need, where this can fit in and sort of fill a gap. And I started interviewing clinicians. I knew, many in the cardiac side, some on the pediatric side. And as I did these interviews, it became very apparent that there's a big gap in pediatric care, which I sort of knew from working on pediatric devices. And my why came in the middle of that because my son, who was a NICU patient, ended up back in the ICU when he was 4 months old. And this was in the middle of us talking about this solution and how we could make it work. And that's what made me take the leap. That and having amazing mentors that believed in me. I didn't even know what the definition of entrepreneur was until, later in my career. I sort of thought, I work in industry. This is what I do. This is my path. But a couple of people along the way have said things like, "Oh, Dory, you're not CEO of the company yet." And I thought they were, kind of making jokes, but I think it was that they saw something that I didn't really know or understand. And now that I'm doing it, I get it. And you have to be a little bit insane, and I'm sure my panelists would agree. But yeah, I felt like I had to jump in.
That's great. Yeah, there's so many personal touches to all of your companies, and I feel like that always builds founders, of course, that are really passionate about what they're doing, and companies in the long term that are more likely to succeed because they have such driven founders with personal buy-ins to, um, you know, what's being created. Good question from Mike in the chat. Let's switch topics and talk a little bit about funding. Thank you to some of the people who have answered already. Dory or Dr. Mosley, do you want to talk a little bit about your funding journey, what resources you've utilized, what success you've had?
Sure. Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
So
go ahead, Dory.
yeah, we started with some sort of uh, cash and input from our founders. So I have several co-founders, which is very helpful. And they sort of pointed us to some opportunities with, I would say, a little bit beyond friends and family, but people that are close to what we do, to help get us off the ground. And then we started pursuing non-dilutive funding early. So, opportunities that are specific to pediatrics, Launch Minnesota. I think all of us are grant recipients of the Launch Minnesota grant. So
Yes.
that certainly has helped, and we're in a nice position right now to be able to operate in a very lean manner. But we have just about a month and a half ago launched our seed raise, where we're targeting angel investors, early stage VCs, and potential strategics, to do, sort of a more formal funding of the company.
Okay, gotcha. Um, Susan, I want to ask you, since you are one of the first, Spave was one of the first Launch Minnesota grant recipients, so you've been working on this for a while. What sort of resources have you used, or what paths have you taken in terms of funding? What's been successful and what hasn't?
Yeah, we've taken advantage of anything that we could do. We were really appreciative of all the networking that we got through Red Wing Ignite first before LaunchMN even existed. They introduced us to SMIF and to the Port Authority and to SBDC. Those resources all came through at different times and at different needs. So if I didn't have the resources to create the professional business plan or the financial projections in order to show them to family and friends and these other entities, we wouldn't have been able to get the funds. So it really helped us along the way to become more organized and professional. Family and friends were the most significant to begin with, and we raised the most from them. But we also had access to the Golden Triangle, which is an angel fund that was launched out of Red Wing Ignite as well. And then I had mentioned SMIF, but it isn't just about the money, which is so important. You have to have it because you have to pay people to do the things that you need to do. But the resources that they provide that are free was integral to our ability to strengthen our vision and our messaging and our targeting. And we did research right away. We used our funds to validate and to substantiate what our theory was. And I noticed, Dory, you had said about interviews. You went out and interviewed people. That is the most important thing that you can do is to listen, right, to your end user, and then to listen to the influencers, and then listen to the decision makers. And each step of the way, you're developing your questions to better enrich what you're doing. So that's how we raised funds, and that's what we use the funds for.
Great, thanks. And Dr. Mosley, I'm sorry, you had a comment earlier,
No,
and I
it's
also,
okay. Yeah.
yeah. So tell me, I mean, you're currently fundraising. How's that going? What's the
Oh
process
my
like?
gosh, fundraising is the bane of my existence.
Yeah.
It is like my least favorite thing to do. I'm not gonna be shy about that. Because it requires so much of you. And when you're actively fundraising, you're not, you have to kind of actively fundraise, but then also find ways to be very present in the business because it's kind of like this double-sided thing where it's like if I'm spending time fundraising and I'm not moving the business forward, what are people investing in, right? So it is this big juggle. And so I love what Susan and Dory said. We started as a bootstrapped company. And so we made more than $1 million before we launched our product and then basically put a good portion of that back into it. We did the things entrepreneurs do, like my wife drained her retirement account, right? We're young enough, right? We had to make sure that we were building something that was resonant to the ecosystem and that we were able to get some traction and results before seeking outside capital. We had to prove that this was a problem, that it was a pain point, and how we were currently solving the problem. And I think that really helps because the market right now is very volatile. We're seeing more investors be risk averse, even early stage investors. So when you're able to say like, hey, this is what we built and these are the customers we have, this is the revenue we've generated, it helps to have a different conversation. We are a Techstars company. So we completed Techstars Minnesota Twins last year. I agree exactly what Susan said. Like the cash is great, but the resources, the network, all of these things that are the intangibles, because running a business and running a tech-enabled business are two completely different things. And so being able to have your financial model, being able to recognize kind of, again, like there's a lot of jargon, there's a lot of language. I find that language and lexicon is currency. Like there's a lot to learn around the VC ecosystem if you're looking to take that kind of capital. And so being able, Techstars gave us great advisors and mentors. We got a lot of resources. And they're ongoing. And so being able to leverage those, you can only go as far as your resources allow you. So we did have to raise. And Techstars put us in a pretty good place to be able to start sorting through investors. All money is not good money. We've certainly turned down more money than we have accepted. And sometimes that was very painful because we needed the resources to scale. But I know I keep coming back to the problem. You are the expert in what you're building. And sometimes, depending on what, investors want to make money, I get it. We all do. They are looking at an ROI, but sometimes they may want you to do something that is not aligned with the product you're building or the customers that you're serving because they don't know. And so I like to enter into those conversations as if like we are partnering, you're providing resources for us. We are getting in this together. We want to be successful. You trust me to build what is appropriate and aligned with the customers that we serve and where we're hoping to go, and then you provide those resources. And so I think it really helps to have a clear understanding of what you're building and your vision for where you're going. I agree with like Dory and Susan, like what does your financial model say? What does that look like? Just being able to explain that in a way, because I just want to be clear, the last thing I'll say about it, there's a very clear power differential often, where they have funds and you are trying to get those funds. It's very easy to feel like, okay, well, they know what they're talking about. And that is not always the case. So I think you want to be very strategic and very thoughtful about taking capital and figuring out what that looks like.
Yeah, absolutely.
Totally
Um,
agree.
yeah. hmm Um, Ashley, you're also currently fundraising. Talk a little bit about that process.
Yeah, we are also doing a $1 million seed raise after getting our initial funds primarily non-dilutively through grants and prize awards. So that's the majority of our company funding. And then we've also done a small pre-seed raise that was largely friends and family and then some outside. Now we're doing a seed raise, and yeah, I couldn't echo Mosley more. It's so hard to be in that power differential, but stay true to the values that you're trying to bring at your company and the path that makes most sense for the product that you're building to have the effect that you want it to have for the population you're trying to help. That's the most important thing. And it's so hard to stay true to that because sometimes it feels like you're choosing between authenticity and the actual livelihood of your company. It's such a hard choice, but I think you have to stick true to that. And at Mommy's, with our $1 million seed raise, we are pre-revenue. We are a medical device company technically, so there's a bit of an R&D timeline there. We've found it most helpful to do this like guerrilla networking effort so that your top of funnel interest is large. That gives you peace of mind that there are options available. So don't put all of your eggs in one basket. Don't just say like this company online or this VC online looks like it should be aligned with me. Like everybody has saying, the fundraising landscape is really tough right now. So me and my co-founder joke, it's 3 coffees and 1 happy hour a day. You're just going to meetings and meetings and meetings, and those people will know people, and then your calendar fills up. And we have so much enthusiasm and interest for what we're doing and what we're building that we know that will trickle down to the right investors to fill that $1 million seed round. And that knowledge is what keeps us going and helping us make those tough decisions, is just trying to amplify your top of funnel interest. So that would be my biggest advice, particularly if you're going for a lower seed raise total that could be filled with angels and angel groups and family offices that do tend to be more of those mission aligned investors, even though we're also looking at VCs, particularly those that have a femtech or women's health angle.
Yeah.
Actually, where are these happy hours?
Oh, we like, I'm in Plymouth. That's my home base. So I do a lot in St. Louis Park or North Loop or Minneapolis, but my co-founder is in St. Paul. So it's nice because we get to just split those cities and divide and conquer.
Nice.
Let's do one together if you want.
That'd be great. Yeah.
I would love to get in there too. We haven't done much fundraising at all. I agree with all of you. Like, there's so much to it. The time uh, away from the company is huge for me. And we have a small team. And to know why I'm raising funds and how I'm going to use those funds, that's always been, the big, how do we use those funds? Of course, I know how I'd use those funds. We have our financials in order, like Susan said, which is super, super important. But my biggest hesitation in raising is I hate it. I've tried it. I've gone on the like circuit in the beginning of Bus Stop Mamas, and I was so uncomfortable doing it. And so I stopped. And now we're at a point where we need to raise. We need to raise because we've figured a lot out over the years. So we launched in 2019. Our model continues to evolve. We've gotten really smart. I know now that I'm a lot more confident and comfortable moving forward because we have these pathways to success really figured out. And for me, I need to be really assured of my product performing well before I ask for money. And I see oftentimes, at least and it would make me feel so inadequate um, when I would see like people pitching and getting funding for things that weren't necessarily really solving problems. And I'd be like so frustrated, like, what am I doing wrong? I'd feel judged. Um, and that wouldn't help my pitch. And that wouldn't help my um, how much people like me, because I would feel like defensive a lot of times in responding to things. So for me, it's like this whole psychological, um, I need to be psychologically prepared to go out and know exactly, feel confident what I'm asking for, and then I know we'll get it. But I think preparedness, like Susan was saying, like Dr. Moses, like everybody's saying, but for me, it's just a little bit different because there's this confidence piece that is essential to win. And without it, um, I can't raise capital. So I haven't gone down any major paths. We've raised very little. Our journey was in January of 2020. We had a lot of encouragement to raise a lot of money. And we did a convertible note raise that was supposed to bridge us to a big raise in April of 2020. And then April of 2020, everything ended. So that kind of took the wind out of my sails, and had to rebuild Bus Stop Mamas in a lot of different ways. So I feel like, going in with confidence and knowing exactly what you want and why, and being able to demonstrate exactly your success. And we've had success. So we've been revenue generating for our entire 6 years in business. And that equips me with more confidence. But we also, to Susan's point, um, we had so much earned media through different events that we weren't the recipient of a lot of money ever. We did get the grants from MinLaunch, and those were great, but we we didn't receive a lot of money. We never won money. We win earned equity, or earned media rather, and that has been very beneficial to the growth of our model.
Can I say something, Maddie?
Yeah.
Mary, I really appreciate what you said. I think one of the pieces around entrepreneurship, if you're on the Instagrams, people think it's a very sexy thing, right? Like it's sexy and you're doing all these cool things and people are posting. It is very difficult and challenging. And yes, to the confidence piece, and confidence waxes and wanes, right? And also like entrepreneurship or being over a startup is like it's a contact and collision and endurance sport. Like it is painful. And when you're raising money, you could literally have investors say, I don't even know what you're doing. Like, no. And there are a lot of no's, and you have to find ways to continue moving forward. And sometimes like right after, like to the point of all of us talking about filling up calendars, there are days where everyone that I meet with tells me no and tells me my, is critical. And you have to pick yourself up, and you have to still be able to present to your team. You still have to show that you believe in what you're building. Like that is a muscle, and that does take a lot of reps and practice. You have to take care of your own psycho-emotional health, to make sure you can endure that. So I really appreciate what you said, because it often isn't necessarily about the problem you're solving or how powerful it is or how confident it's like, how can you endure and bounce back and take care of yourself enough to show up to keep doing this day after day after day, especially when you are not getting the results and when you are getting some really, really, really difficult news day in and day out.
Yep, perseverance is it all. And I want to share something with everyone, because this this was in the paper yesterday. I'm a I read the Wall Street Journal every single day, and there was a little bit about uh, the new uh, Netflix movie. I don't know exactly what the movie is, but it was it was Blockbuster. So it's the new Blockbuster movie. And so in 1997, Jeff Bezos, who doesn't have an MBA, by the way, gave a presentation to Harvard Business School about his company. Harvard Business students formed groups and to discuss the presentation. And this is what they told Jeff Bezos. And I've heard this before, okay? And you guys probably have too. You seem like a really nice guy. Well, they've said you seem like a really nice person. So don't take this the wrong way. But you really need to sell the Barnes and Noble and get out now. Okay, that was the advice. So along this pathway, as Mosley is saying, you're going to hear a bunch of crap that is not going to land well with you. And some of it will, and it should, and it's an opportunity to get better. But if you believe in what you're doing and you know you're solving a problem and you're passionate about it, do it. Because this is what happens in the fundraising process. You're going to be told stuff like, this isn't going to work. Your numbers are off. You know, everybody's numbers are off. Projections are something that, you know, they're wrong. They're wrong all the time. So anyway, I just want to encourage, you know, if you believe in your product, it's hard to raise capital. If you lean on raising capital, you're not necessarily going to win. Learn your model, know your model, feel comfortable, and then when you hear crap like that, like, you can move on because you have an operating model. For me, that's what's important to be able to raise capital, is having an operating model.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad that we have Mosley's therapy background. This is really good for this session.
I'm giving you a call, Dr. Mosley. I need you.
Well, let's talk about something like, let's look forward a little bit. What's next for your business, and how can Minnesota's startup community support you if there is a way? Ashley, do you want to go? Or Dory, I see you went off mute. Let's do Dory first.
Yeah, sure. So, you know, I'll say at being in the medical device space, like Ashley, Minnesota is the best place to be. I mean, it's really the hub for med tech. You've got not just the people, you know, the kind of bigwigs like Abbott, Medtronic, Boston Scientific located there, but all of the sort of smaller and critical functions that feed into those large organizations. So the manufacturers, the designers, the regulatory specialists, the reimbursement specialists, and the investor community too. And you know, as Mosley and some of the others were talking about fundraising and, you know, kind of narrowing your scope and sort of the ability to not even necessarily turn down money, but turn away from money opportunities, is finding people that really know your business and what that sort of business life cycle is like. I mean, medical devices very different. You know, we're going to be pre-revenue for a long time. So it looks a lot different as a business model. And if you have investors that are looking for the newest AI app, they're probably not the best people for you. So being in Minnesota and having people that really understand medtech is so helpful for us. The connections have been amazing. I mean, the Launch Minnesota team themselves have made connections for us. I'm sure anybody in the medical device space knows Frank Jaskolke, which I might be butchering his name, but he knows everybody and is willing to make connections. So, you know, whatever industry you're in, I would say, you know, find that niche, find that community. And in Minnesota, it does exist. And, you know, I think Launch Minnesota and some of the resources that, you know, Minnesota Deed and some of the other programs offer is sort of access to whatever that community is for you. And
Nice.
next steps for us is clinical testing. So we're also lucky that there are children's hospitals that are sort of leading centers in the country in Minnesota. So we're working with some of those.
Cool. Ashley?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of like to joke we're the Minnesota poster child for leveraging Minnesota resources to get off of the ground. I think if we had founded our business in any other state, it would have been significantly more challenging to get off the ground. So I'm super appreciative to Launch Minnesota. That was our first money in the door, the innovation grant. Also, the pitch competition circuit here. We did Walleye Tank, which is Minnesota's Shark Tank, and got first prize in the junior division. There are multiple divisions to meet your tier of business. Obviously, Minnesota Cup, we participated 2 years in a row, learned a lot, gained a lot of mentorship, and last year we're lucky enough to take home grand prize in top women-led business, which gave us a healthy runway to raise money right now. MN SBIR, we're an SBIR grant recipient, and we love Pat Dillon, as we all do. Medical Alley members, I mean, truly across the board, we're plugged into Minnesota and so grateful for what they've built to get startups off the ground here. And I will say, beyond all of the community resources, just the peer-to-peer networking and support in Minnesota is so unique. I think that's where the Minnesota infusion really stands out. We are a rising tide lifts all boats state. We want to help each other. We want to see each other succeed. We want to commiserate and share the good and the bad. It's not all flashy. And, I share my challenges with fellow founders, oftentimes more than I'm sharing my successes. And I'm so grateful to have that peer community because it helped me learn, you're not alone, you're not doing anything wrong, and it helps you find a way forward because there's strength in numbers. So just hats off to Minnesota, all of the resources and all of the people pursuing entrepreneurship here. I'm so grateful to be a part of this family. Next steps for us beyond the fundraise. We are locking in IP. We actually developed a second product that we can get to market faster and serve consumers more quickly. And that's what we're primarily raising our seed round to do. So we're locking in IP for new products and kind of finishing up our non-provisional on our flagship product. We're also attending a lot of conferences coming up, establishing early relationships with clinical partners and strategics who are going to be essential once we have money in hand to do the remaining product development and ensure we have the relationships in place to make our product launch as successful as possible. And that's been a lot of fun. There's a lot of alignment between the clinical community, the strategic community, and what we're doing at Mommy's. We're adding something really unique to our field, and it's constantly inspiring. So that's another tip for fundraising. It's easy to only do that, but diversifying your time and making sure that you do have those meetings with the people who are excited about what you're doing. It reminds you why you're doing it and why it matters, and it can keep you moving forward when the people who are more on the math side of business might might be a little less enthusiastic about what you're pursuing. So, yeah, that's what's next for me.
Nice. Mosley.
Yeah. I love everything that both of them said. I also want to share. So we decided to headquarter our company in Minnesota last year. I live part-time in Minneapolis, but I actually live in Atlanta. And so I have a little bit of a commute. But it is very true. Everything that Ashley said around the community, around the ecosystem, building companies here, I think has been really fruitful for us. And I totally agree. And again, I know this is like the Maddie show. But like this has been really fantastic. My what's next will answer a couple of questions I saw in the chat around pilots. We only did paid pilots, and we're a B2B SaaS platform. That took us longer to get folks, but we were able to talk about like everyone that is using the platform on our B2B SaaS enterprise model is paying in some way. They're paying something. And so I saw the death by pilots piece, and I get that. But I mean, you also need to have the proof points. And so if they can pay something, get people to pay something if you can. We own all of our IP. We're patent pending. We have proprietary data. We have all of the copyrights and trademarks that is helpful to differentiate what you're building. I also want to name both similar, with Dory and Ashley, like there have to be so many pivots. The sales cycles for us with college and pro sports are extremely long. And we were recognizing as we were moving that it was very hard for us to identify where we were seeing progress, even though we were. And so we actually built a second version of our platform, which is a skinny version. It's our freemium version, which is now available in the App Store. You could like Google the playbook and it's in there. And it's given us an opportunity to get kind of immediate feedback, also to test out a B2C revenue stream, even though we're a B2B company, and then also get immediate feedback on how the product is landing with folks that may or may not be in sport or be necessarily in the vertical. So it's been fun and interesting in a different way, kind of the way that Ashley was mentioning. The last thing I would say, okay, and so post the pilots, we will post the pilots, post fundraise. We will be kind of iterating our product for a post MVP launch probably in January of 26. But one thing I think that's really important if you're raising or otherwise, when you identify the people who get what you're doing and want to support you, whether they can invest or not, we send out quarterly updates to folks, and it really helps. People want to follow what you're doing, and it's very true. Like, if you don't think mental health is important or sport is your thing, I can't explain that to you and make you understand it and cut a check or be supportive. So the mission aligned folks are really important and lead to other, I think, opportunities and connections. So keep people abreast of what you're doing. I know, like, sometimes it's hard to say, like, things are really hard and we're struggling in these areas. But when I've done that, I've gotten support as well. And so I think being able to we send out quarterly updates to people who are following us. Just hit the highlights. More than happy to like share them with y'all, or you can, or I can add you to our list. But like I think it's a really good way because also this is an isolating experience, and sometimes you think you're in it alone. And I think being able to have community and connection and people following you along, just really supports your cause and what you're building.
Awesome. Mary Kay, we're getting a couple questions in the chat here. So you said you've been in business since 2019. So maybe you can help with this question. When did you first start seeing a profit?
We started seeing a profit last year. We right out of the gate, we had revenue. So our model was, we've changed it a lot over the years, and we continue. Pricing is the number one challenge for me, is landing in that spot and knowing how to ride. So pricing is the most important, and the economy, you have to watch it because the economy has every single thing to do with your pricing model. And that keeps it exciting, right? Like, how are you going to solve this problem? But the pricing model is directly related to profit and understanding, are you going to be volume? Is volume going to drive your profits? And what is that lucky number? And how are you setting up if it's a SaaS model, how are you setting up that pricing? For me, we are a double-sided marketplace. We make money from employers. It's free for moms to join our network, but we're always looking, like we have to constantly fill both funnels. So forming partnerships has been our big way to increase both funnels and keep money coming in. And we finally landed in a couple of really exciting spaces, which is what is driving our raise now. So we have national partnerships for both funnels, and that's the fuel that keeps us going. So yeah, long answer. When do you see a profit? What do you think that profit is? Like, our profit wasn't high, but we had a profit, and hallelujah, we had it, and we shouted it from the rooftops, because we work on a very, very limited budget. We're a team of 5. I barely pay myself anything. And that's been the case for the whole run here. I pay my employees. I don't pay myself much of anything when times are hard, which right now we have uh, slower revenue, but we have a solution. So that is what is exciting, and I'm a slow learner. It took me a long time to get to where we're at right now. So most of you will learn faster than me. So the partnerships are essential to growth and volume.
Let's see here. What else? Oh yeah, Mary Kay, do you want to talk about one thing that has really impressed me with Bus Stop Mamas as you've grown is you've made connections with some huge companies here in town, working with, I don't know if you still have these contracts, but with like Caribou, Boston Scientific. So how did you go about making those kind of corporate connections? Because when we surveyed grantees recently, that was one of the top things that they wanted information on or assistance with. So maybe you could share a little bit about that experience.
Yeah, well, networking is key to everything. I mentioned prior to Bus Stop Mamas, I worked in legal and marketing and advertising agencies, and taught lawyers how to develop their practice. So it's super essential to know who you're serving. You know, I was asked this all the time about Bus Stop Mamas. What are your industries? And we'd be like, we're everybody. I would never, ever, ever tell a lawyer that they would be successful saying that they can serve everyone. You can't serve everyone and grow your business. The way you make or the way you get business is knowing exactly who you need that business from. And it's a so what I do, here's my secret always, is I go to people who I want as customers. I ask a friend who I know in the industry, where do you go? What do you read? Where do you go? What do you read in your industry? I'm not asking them for business. I'm asking them for information. And then I go there and then I embed in it. And then I start speaking their language. And the more that you can do that, the narrower you can make your outreach, the better you are at getting those introductions to the right people. So then I can ask people, I'm working with insurance and private wealth management. I'm working with manufacturers. Can you help me with an introduction? They will. So knowing what you want, knowing what to ask for is very beneficial. And then with that is knowing that value add. I was given a lot of advice through really smart people. The advice didn't always land well with my buyers. So knowing your buyers and your buyers' issues are and what they're ready to pay and willing to pay is super important to forging those contracts with the big guys. So we work with Boston Scientific, so companies as large as Boston Scientific and as small as a two-person operation and everything in between, which is some people will say we only work with businesses that are 10 million and up. We work with everybody. We work with businesses of every size and will always be that, but we are focused on certain industries where we have proven success, and that allows us. So our areas are manufacturing, insurance and private wealth management, startup, and young companies. That's who we help the most. That's who we have really great testimonials from. Susan and Ashley are two of those. So knowing what you serve, going after those businesses, and asking the people who you know in the industry, where do you go? for information. What conferences do you attend? What are you reading? What are those resources? Because that's where you want to go. You want to get into those newsletters. You want to get into that, whatever they're reading, that magazine, wherever they get industry knowledge, and be the resource.
Awesome. Well, we have less than 10 minutes left, so I just want to hit everyone with like a quick lightning round question. What's one piece of advice that you would give a fellow founder? It doesn't need to, I mean, we're going to keep this broad because I know we're all in different stages of different industries. Dory, could I call on you first?
Yeah, absolutely. So mine would be to find a balance of people that you go to advice for. You kind of need the yes people that will, kind of lift you up and promote your own ideas and validate your thoughts, but you also need the people that are going to say, no, that's ridiculous. I found a balance with that, and I was sort of hesitant to bring in this advisor because I knew she was aggressively opinionated. She said it herself. And it's been honestly the best thing for our company having her input and sort of that, blunt response, this will work, this won't. And so make sure you surround yourself with people of, with cognitive diversity, I'll say.
Yes. Awesome. Mosley.
I would say fire fast and hire slow. Take your time, especially in the early stages of surrounding yourself with people on your team, because we are a team of 6. So 1/6, everyone has an impact on the kind of culture. And I know it feels weird because you're small, but you're co-creating the culture that you want of your company, and everyone has some kind of contribution to that. If you recognize things are not working or you're misaligned, get people out of there fast. You can do it thoughtfully, but it doesn't make sense to hold on to people that are going to be working against your mission. It's too hard. You're too small. You need to be agile and to pivot where needed. So I would say be very thoughtful about who you hire. I know it's supposed to be quick. The one thing that I do, I don't hire anyone full-time immediately. I do a 90-day trial period. I don't call it that. So we do a project-based, deliverable-based 90-day period. If you make it through that, kind of a contract to hire, then we talk about full-time employment potentially. We've had a lot of people not make it. So give yourself an opportunity to try before you buy.
Good one. Ashley?
Yeah, and this is kind of a theme of what we talked about today. I think as entrepreneurs, you hear a lot, especially from like the investor community, you need to be coachable. And that can be confusing because sometimes it feels like people are telling you, you need to take my advice because that's how I'm perceiving you as coachable. And then you hear conflicting advice from all of these experts. So I would just say coachability is important, but your job as the founder, the leader, the executive of your company is to be a filter of that advice and that noise coming in. Certainly, outside perspectives can improve your business, but you do have to go with your gut and your vision for the company in terms of what you take in and what you set aside. So, yeah, don't be afraid to say no as long as you have a reason to say no to suggestions because you're going to get suggestions across the board. And it's up to you to have that strong vision for where you're trying to take your company and infuse the advice and evidence that's going to help you get there.
Love it. All right, Mary Kay, close us out.
Yeah, everything that they said, and perseverance. So perseverance is my number one quality. I am a driver, so stick with it, and remember that Jeff Bezos little story that I shared, because if you believe in what you're doing and you are passionate about it, yes, listen to other people, but everybody can't steer your product. Everybody can't steer your service. And you know it. You know the problem you're solving. Stick with it. Be strong and persevere. It's easy to drop out. It's hard to stick with it.
Beautiful. Well, I know we could easily keep going for another hour, but I want to be respectful of everyone's time, so I'm going to close it out. Thank you so much to Mary Kate, Dory, Ashley, and Mosley for taking the time, and Susan as well, who had to drop early. We are so grateful to you for sharing your expertise. We have recorded this and it'll be available on our website. Yeah, and enjoy the rest of your Friday. All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you,
Have a good one.
Maddie.
Thank you so
Okay,
much,
thanks.
Maddie.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.